Welcome to the Performance Portfolio Podcast with Coop and Coop. Greg Cooper and Cooper Allen bridge the gap between performance and finance to help you build a stronger life and a more resilient future. Let's get into today's episode.
Coop. Behind scenes in the green room, we were talking about a really great topic. Probably should have been recording a little earlier, but what is it all about, and why did it come to your mind? Let the people know.
Yeah, I think before I get into the topic, something that's probably worth pre-framing with our listeners is Greg and I get on here, and 9 times out of 10, we don't have a topic picked for what we're going to talk about. We just pop on, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And usually we brainstorm 3 or 4 things. And the reason that we can do that kind of off the cuff without it being completely off the cuff is because we're actually living it day to day. We're running businesses. We're actively involved in a community of people. So when we get on and we talk about a topic, we're probably not talking about any one individual, but there are trends and patterns that we're noticing either among our clients or prospects or general society, or it's some sort of lived experience. And maybe that's a separate topic from what we were going to talk about today, Greg, but I think that's an important caveat and something that's missing from the digital space today, at least the digital coaching space right now, where it's a lot of theory, but not a lot of tried and true. Hey, here's what we're doing day to day. So I don't think that you and I could pop on and just wing it, so to speak, if it wasn't us just speaking to what does our day to day, week to week look like as entrepreneurs. So before I reveal a topic, what's your take on that?
Oh, we could wing it, but we would get called out faster by people who don't know us, that are experienced or are living it, because they call us on it. They're like, that is not how that works. And not to say that everything we've talked about on the podcast we're experts on, but we are living it or experiencing it or in the moment, like that's something we were dealing with. But a lot of the times, obviously, when we get into the performance or especially the finance world, this is our domain. This is what we do every day. Finance for Coop, obviously, and performance and athletic sports coaching for me. But yeah, then like the people close to us would be like, that was what was that about? Right? So you can always wing it and hope that nobody catches you, but to quote Brad Pitt in F1, hope's not a strategy. So yeah, we could absolutely wing it, but we wing it on things that, like you said, Coop, we live every day. And the whole point of it was this podcast was to be authentic and to talk about things that are on our minds, that we're seeing, that we're looking at and dealing with in the moment. Not to sound like a broken record, but if I rewind back to my first podcast I ever did, and even when Coop and I first started doing podcasts, we did a couple others before this one together. We had like written out topics, and it was so like interview style, like, and we were interviewing each other. It's like, well, why are we interviewing each other? We're just waiting to get to point three when we could have just spent the whole time way more productively and fleshed out on point one. We didn't need eight. Okay, period. We're stopping now. Timeout. On to the next, because that isn't authentic either. So, anyway, that's my short story, super long as usual.
So what I'm hearing is we're never going to get a clip from you saying don't love your job your love.
Jesus. I don't know who that woman was, but I just saw it the other day. I just laughed. It's like, maybe read a book before you go to your job.
Oh man,
That's funny.
crazy. On, on a more serious note, though, you guys, today what we're going to talk about is uh, how personal development is repetitive, and that's the whole point. And what led to this topic was Greg and I off air when we said, "Hey, what do you want to chat about today?" And Greg had thrown out a couple topics, and there was one he threw out, and he's like, "Yeah, but we've kind of already chatted about that." And I agreed, but then I thought about it and I said, "Yeah, but isn't that kind of the point?" And there's going to be times where we get on here and we repeat the same topic. We might talk about discipline versus motivation. We might talk about sober living versus the effects of alcohol. We might talk about the overlap between financial health and physical health, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that one of the things I appreciate the most about Greg is something I try to embody as well, is I'm okay sharing an opinion today and changing my mind with new information or with an element of personal growth 6 months from now. So over the course of, if we do this podcast for 30 years, we should probably talk about discipline versus motivation 60 different times, covering it twice a year, because of how much we're going to evolve and how much life is going to change. And Greg, yeah, you mentioned that you're in the performance world, I'm in the finance world, but both of us outside of those two things, one of the core connectors of the two of us is that we both believe heavily in personal development. So we're not just running a business, we're also developing and growing ourselves in our fitness, in books, podcasts, just striving to become better versions of ourselves mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, and so on. So it's kind of that old adage of no man walks through the same river twice, because it's a different river and it's a different man each time. Uh, so that's what I want to dive a little bit deeper on with people today is I find there's a lot of people who they personally develop for a bit and then think they've heard it all, so they stop doing it, and um, just wanted to go further down the rabbit hole with you, Greg, on how repetition is the whole point. And if you hear, whether it's us or whether it's mentors and coaches that you have, uh, starting to sound repetitive, well, if you're not implementing what's being repeated, it's not part of who you are. It's not something that's helping you in your day to day. If someone's repeating it more than once, it might be worth listening to. So that's what my at least intro 2 cents on today's topic, and curious to hear your initial thoughts as well.
I, on the repetition piece, where people often, I think, get stuck or hung up on is they confuse repetition for getting stagnant. Now it can, but repetition of positive things that build you and grow you, and repetition that has progression in it, that is personal development. Now, if repetition is only, okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing all the time, forever. Well, one, you're speaking in absolutes, and that's something I have to work on because I do that. But when you start speaking in absolutes, it's like, great, so you're going to do the same thing all the time and never change it. Well, we've talked about this lots on the podcast on the finance side of things. It's like the strategies that worked for our parents and grandparents financially will not work for us today. It's a different world. Everything has changed, and the systems need to change as well. So yeah, repetition's great, but then you need to have check-ins where it's like, okay, is what I'm doing still relevant today in this moment for who I am today versus who I was 6 months ago, a year ago, 3, 5, 10 years ago? And if not, okay, keep the repetition up, but now make a change, right? And I'll make that more philosophical sentence and ramble a little bit more tangible. You're first getting into the gym. You're gonna do some bicep curls. You're gonna try to do some squats and some sit-ups. Great, real foundational stuff. But then eventually you're gonna start getting diminishing returns because you're not being dynamic and well-rounded with your training. Okay, well then that's maybe when you look at, even before you look at a coach, you look at the super strong guy or super strong woman doing a movement you've never seen before, or you saw on Instagram and you went, okay, well, but why? And you go ask, hey, like, what is that working? Oh, well, instead of curls, you can do a dumbbell like curl clean and press, like something pretty low, and it just a little bit more bang for your buck. Cool, I'm gonna start doing that. And oh, now my shoulders are getting stronger, and actually my shoulder mobility has increased. Great. So you've continued the repetition of going to the gym and doing a movement for your upper body, but now you've changed how that modality is, and you've improved it, and you've progressed in that repetition. That's development. So a lot there to unpack, but like that's my initial thoughts on, repetition's a great thing, but you need to check in with yourself and with others to stay accountable to the progression.
Absolutely. That's an important distinction, the repetition versus development piece as well, because here's a trend that, and I caught myself in this, so I'm speaking from firsthand experience here, is I first got into the personal development world and went pretty aggressive into books and podcasts and just trying to be better. Firmly believe that I will get paid in business in direct proportion to the value that I bring to the marketplace. And if the value is just in the product partners that I have access to or the teammates that I have access to, somebody else could just enter my space. So I realized pretty quickly that hey, it's not just about the product shelf we have or who we broker through. I get to become individually valuable and make my team valuable as well. So it got to a point though, because I went so aggressive in that world that yes, a lot of the messages did start sounding the same. So I went for a while where I stopped reading and I stopped listening to podcasts because I'm like, well, what's the point of spending the time on it if it's going to say all the same stuff? And here's the point on that is what I realized in that time is if you're not filling your headspace with stuff like that, growth related, positive, even if it does start to sound a little Kool-Aid-ish or repetitive or too much, it's not just that or nothing. It's the whole like you're either growing or you're dying thing. I found there was no stagnancy. It's in the absence of filling my subconscious mind with growth related topics, my subconscious mind it then replaced with crap. And did I watch the news? No, not necessarily. I wasn't doing enough personal development to override the day-to-day conversations I was having about whatever the weather or the economy or politics or day-to-day stuff within your family, just conversations that your friends and family are going to have naturally with you. And you can still be a good son or brother or spouse or friend to somebody talking about the day-to-day stuff. I'm not, I don't think I'm as extreme as some people in the personal development space who say, yeah, you need to cut that stuff out completely. I think you can still have those conversations with people, but I think when you're also personally developing, there's any negativity that comes from those circles, whether it's sarcastic or not, can get overridden if you're doing enough personal growth and you're focused and you have a game plan for your own mental health and your learning. So um, I think if you're someone who maybe is picking up a book right now or listening to a podcast, hey, maybe you're like, you know what? I've read all of John Maxwell's leadership books, so I don't need to learn anything more about leadership. Well, it's a perishable skill. So continue to, yeah, maybe you don't have to read the next book super in depth, uh, but maybe it is good to reference back to some notes to have some daily or some weekly or some monthly reminders on what does it take to be a good leader within my community or within my company. So that's that's one topic I definitely wanted to touch on is just, hey, don't shy away from listening to something or relearning something just because you already heard it 6 months ago or 6 years ago on your personal development journey.
Relearning things is the real big takeaway for me there because for individuals who have put so much time into personal and professional development and they're starting to gain success and really get on that pathway of mastery in whatever their pathway and their vehicle that they deliver that is, but you can never forget that you have to be the student every once in a while. If you are only ever the master and the coach and the teacher, you're probably not, right? Like I ask my senseis and my coaches that are that's what I look at them as because that's who they are to me. And they still look at their teachers and their new teachers, and they're still looking at different ways to improve and continue to go like, yeah, we've done it this way, and now I've tried it this way, but I had a conversation with my sensei Gary, who's been coaching judo his whole life. He's a seventh degree black belt, going for his eighth this coming year. And he went, you know what? I think I'm going to teach, these two moves differently at the start of the season. I think after seeing this camp and like having conversations, like I think I'm going to switch the modality. And it's like, there's someone who has no need to, but he still wants to. And I'll go back to your book piece as well because I think that's a great because at some point everybody's picked up a book. And for people in personal development, they've picked up some kind of self-help or biography from a successful entrepreneur, some kind of book like that. And then they finished it, great, they checked the box. Personal development isn't a check the box thing. Yeah, great. You can say, "Oh, I read 50 books this year, but how much did you retain?" Or have you, instead of continually buying new and new and new and new and new and only ever doing new stuff, when you first picked that book up, that was the start of your journey. Or, it was a certain phase in your journey in that personal development. Have you gone back to that book and reread it and go, oh, that makes so much more sense now? Or I've experienced that now. Or man, I still haven't got to that point that he talked about because when I first read it, it flew right over my head because it seemed so far away. But now that you've progressed in your path and it's been 6 months, a year, longer, more than likely, since you picked up that very first book you read, where are you at now? Reread that book and then see how much more you gain from it. And just like on the repetition. Yeah, as you progress in anything, movements in the gym that you first started with, have you ever gone back to those like super basic things opposed to just writing them off and go, oh no, I do Olympic lifting now. I don't need to do that basic stuff, but just try it because it's going to give you a stimulus that maybe you haven't isolated in the same way since, or you'll just be able to blow your mind and go, whoa, when I started, tens were hard. I just did that with 70-pound dumbbells and it didn't feel perceivably that much harder. Yeah, well, you've been consistent in the gym for 3 years. I'd hope not. And it's just like a cool proofing to yourself that you are, in fact, still developing because of the repetition you've put in.
Totally. The first thing I thought of at the tail end there, where you were talking about going back to fundamentals, is those videos you see online of people who are completely jacked and in shape, but they're working with someone on their mobility and they haven't stretched in years, and you're seeing how much flexibility they lack. And you look at that and you go, holy smokes, that guy can lift 10x what I can lift, but can he bend over to pick his daughter up? Could would he pull something in his back picking up groceries if he had to pick them up the wrong way? Can the guy touch his toes? So it was interesting for you to say that.
A cool example of that, like right now as we speak, is Chris Bumstead, one of the most storied Olympians, like Mr. Olympia, I mean, competitors out there, 6-time champ, I believe. If I'm wrong, some bodybuilder friend of mine is going to correct me, but he was untouchable and he had the greatest physique. But now, yeah, he hasn't stopped training, but he's not training like a bodybuilder. He's training like an athlete. He's doing tire flips, cleans, battle ropes, sled sprints, like all of this, like more CrossFit, more athletic, dynamic type stuff because he wants to be capable. He's a father now. And yeah, he wants to maintain his physique. Like he's one of the most incredible looking guys on the planet and he has the strength to back it. But now he's like, how can I take that pure static strength for physique that I had and make it athletic and functional and focus more on longevity? Which I think is super cool because you don't see, especially in that realm, those athletes make that transition as like fast and naturally as he did. But like, there's a great example of somebody who was truly at the peak and in a master class of what he did in bodybuilding. And now he's being the student again and learning these movements and getting mobile. And you look at this guy and you're like, that's an athlete. Like you put him in any sport, just by watching a YouTube video, like he'll kill everybody because he's changed and progressed how he's done things. He was here and now he's starting back, maybe not at the bottom by any means, but he's starting back and now working his way up. And where a guy like that with that much focus and foundational expertise in fitness, like it's gonna do this. Like give him another year and you could tell him, hey, do this XYZ fitness competition, he'd probably win it.
That's a great point, Greg, where a lot of things people are scared to start over. And I could leave the company that I broker through tomorrow, pick up and go to another company. And instead of taking, say, 7 years to get to where I got, probably do the same thing in the first 7 months in the new company. And I find sometimes people do that in our industry where they'll switch and they'll have the same results. And then they'll go, well, look at how much better this new company is because I did the same thing here in a year that took me 7 over here to do. It's like, no, no, it didn't take you 7 years in company A to achieve the results that you achieved. It took you 7 years to become the person that you needed to and develop your skill set to then achieve the results in that company. So then when you go over to company B, you're bringing in that example 7 years of experience, whether that's sales training, prospecting, personal development, mindset, networking, contact list within the community, et cetera, bringing that all with you. So it didn't take you that much longer. It probably took you the same amount of time in company A versus company B to build what you've built once you accumulated the skills and experience. So if someone's sitting there saying, "Hey, I'm afraid to start over or act like the student," well, if you're acting like a student, but you can come at it from a place of in another area of your life, you've been a teacher for 3 years or a year or a decade, then you're bringing a whole new mindset and perspective in terms of your ability to be a student. You're going to learn quicker at a higher level, more intuitively than you would have the last time you were a student in another capacity. So, um, yeah, can it be challenging and sometimes uncomfortable to learn new things? Of course it can be. Should you be able to, if you're constantly personally developing in other areas, be able to pick different things up better than maybe you had previously? Of course, that's another thing as well.
A point I'll make on that too with starting new, because you and I both know that neither of us are afraid of that. Been there, done that, doing that. We'll probably do it again and again and again. But I can say, and I'm not being braggadocious here, but I can say, like, when I look back, because I've done so much introspection lately and like really deep introspection on where I am at as a man and as a person. And I look back at all of my experiences that I've got to have. Like, I've had a lot of experience in a very few amount of years. And I can honestly say, like, the reason why I have pivoted so fast is because I've been consistent in who I am. Okay, so I was in, for people that don't know, we'll do the map here. I was in school for agriculture, went into agriculture sales, but I was still, fitness is the foundation. I was the motivation, happy go lucky, energetic guy. Okay, then I went from that to sales consultant. In the mix, then I went back to agriculture sales for a second. Then I totally flipped the script, went to wheelchair sports, Saskatchewan, while still building a company and trying to build another one that was in the coaching sphere, and then judo coaching at the same time. So I'm doing all these things, and like if you put the puzzles, it's like how do those things feed into each other? It's like, well, because it's not about if agriculture sales can help you become a better judo coach. Probably not. But what can you pull from that? People skills, deadlines, work ethic, managing teams, right? You can pull these things. And if you're consistent to yourself, starting new things, regardless of how vastly different they may be, isn't that daunting. If you just take a step back, take 5 minutes, take the night, take an afternoon while you're eating lunch and just go, okay, what are my experiences that I've had to this point? Where can I pull those things? And that's something I talk about with my performance clients all the time. Okay, great. You're good at X, Y, and Z. So how do Y and Z help X? And how do X and Y help Z? And then they start thinking about it more. They go, oh, it's really not that different. No, the vehicle is, but how you present yourself should remain the same. It should improve and you should get better in all the areas of your life. But if people go, well, you were a way different guy when I saw you in with your polo shirt on being a sales guy, you acted differently. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. That's their perception. But if you can go, no, I was consistent to it. It was just I had to be farmer talk instead of athlete talk. Different vehicles, same delivery.
Yeah, no, people are, oh, you're different. Well, it's not different. You still have the same intentions, the same heart, the same core values, believe in the same things. You're just gonna meet people where they're at. Like that's communication and relationship building 101. Where the opposite I find happens, there's so much in personal development right now. It's like, well, just be yourself and it's up to everybody else to just accept you as who you are. Okay, so and where I see this a lot is you see it gives people who previously lacked confidence this they're actually not confident now, they're just arrogant. They show up very arrogantly through the guise of self-confidence. Like I'm gonna be the loudest, like for women, I'm gonna be the baddest bitch in the room type of thing. And nobody can tell me what to do. I'm gonna control the room. Okay, awesome. How's that working out for you? Like it's one thing to be confident. It's a whole other thing to be. I'm just going to show up and be completely arrogant and ignorant, not solve anyone's problems, talk over people, and call it confidence and say that I'm claiming my power. No, you're showing everybody that you don't have respect for their input and you're not trying to meet them where they're at, and that it needs to be your show. Because if it's not your show, then it's not good enough. So I think lost in that sometimes is. Yeah, I mean, be confident in who you are, be confident in your intentions, be confident in what you stand for, what your core values are. Especially if you intend to serve, you can attach a lot of your confidence in your intention to serve your community and build a business that serves and helps other people. But yeah, different people are going to be there. You're going to need to meet different people with different needs. And there's this advice right now online that's, well, you got to get super niche. Just pick a niche. And I do tend to agree with that. You're going to have more success within a specific niche for sure. But before you go niche, you have to have some broad level life experience. You get people that have zero life experience in any of this stuff, or they have life experience, but nobody's ever coached them on how to pull from their life experience. And now they're trying to find a niche to sell a course in or to coach people on. It's like, why are you trying to find it? Go get some broad life experience, Greg, like you just talked about, where, yeah, I did do egg sales and I worked in wheelchair sports and I did this and I did that. And I can look back now. Yeah, my career as a financial advisor is better off having experiences consulting in the music industry and for an apparel company and working in student recruitment and uh, just being able to pull from a bunch of different experiences and taking the time to learn about other people's lives. Hey, what's it like as a cop? What's it like as a teacher? What's it like as a nurse? And trying to understand people. And yeah, it's if great example. How does that help me right now? Well, if I'm trying to tap into a niche of helping the healthcare industry with their financial planning, I now know the type of person that I need to recruit so that we can run nurses helping nurses. And I can put my ego aside and go, hey, I'm probably not going to connect with somebody who works shift work or in a hospital setting or in the ER where they see a bunch of stuff that I don't see day to day. So I'm going to pull someone who previously was from that field, teach them what I know, and get them to go help their community and find a niche. But if I don't have a baseline understanding of how that stuff works and the types of things that those people are looking for, because I'm not listening, I'm just talking because I think I know best, and I'm reclaiming my confidence, and I'm going to be the loudest guy in the room, which usually, as on the dude side, means you're compensating for something. But um, if you're not listening, then you're not going to be able to figure out what niche makes the most sense for you to work into, uh, because you don't have broad enough experience, um, hands-on, tangible. You is in a work background, and also experience is two parts. Experience is one part resume, one part being able to pull what you've learned out of that. Because you could have 10 jobs, and if you don't know the core skill sets that you're able to pull from each of them, then you're worse off than the person who had two jobs but connected how how they could help their next thing. And then it's a third part. It's sometimes it's less resume. Give me the 22-year-old who spent a ton of time around their parents' friends or their aunt and uncle's friends, or maybe they had a mentor or a professor or something, but they just, a 22-year-old that hung, when they were 16, hung around older people. When they were 20, hung around older people. When they're 22, hung around older people and asked a bunch of questions and just soaked it up as a sponge over the person who's now 35, but just stayed in their bubble and it was the all about them show, or they never had the courage to sit in a room full of people further ahead of them then and listen. Uh, it's how do you pay attention to other people's workouts, or when you're in the gym, if you're an athlete, are you watching how the older teams practice? Are you asking them what mistakes that they made that you can learn from? So yeah, give me the 22-year-old with a shorter resume, but who actually has taken the time to listen and understand people and learn from their experiences and learn about them, because that's intangible stuff you could add to a resume. And I think it ties back to the topic as well of as you're getting to know people, yeah, it might be repetitive. You might hear a lot of the same stuff, especially from, I did a ton of coffee meetings early in my career that weren't about presenting a financial company overview. It was just kind of seeing where people were at with their life. And yeah, some of them got pretty repetitive, and some of them you're halfway through your coffee and I'm like, man, I'd love to get out of here. This is boring. But you get to understand people and you see patterns and you start to realize who's happy versus who's not, who's financially well off versus who's not, who's on a good trajectory, who's not, just based on their mindset and their attitude on things. And then you can develop a plan on how to help all different types of people. So um,
The thing about niches right now, because I've seen an annoying amount of content on it, and I'm gonna throw this in before I touch on it directly, but Brett Wilson is somebody who I look up to, and great man. He's created a lot of success in the world, and for people that know of him, they go, "Oh, he's just a rich guy from Dragon's Den." Yeah, but how did he get into the niche he was in? He went to school to become an engineer and went to the rigs, and he was a drilling engineer in the oil field in Alberta. Then he became a investment, and I might get this wrong, but his company was around investment in the oil field, and then that diversified out. But his niche was oil field, so that's the people he understands the most. And then he diversified that into, you know, big investments into startup companies and the whole Dragon's Den thing. But his niche was always in the oil world. So how did he? He didn't just go, "Ah, I'm going to market that niche." No, he lived that. He experienced it. He knew how the people talked, what they thought, what they were looking for, what they needed. He understood the industry. And then now, fast forward to 2026, you see these stupid content videos of like, if you're in a niching, blah, 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 you need to market yourself better. Okay, so you're telling me to succeed in my niche, I just need to spend $5,000 a month on Google Ads and I'm good? I bet if you have the ability to, yeah, you'll get a few clients from it because people will see enough of your stuff and they'll click on it because you're paying for them to become your customer. I'm not saying that's a bad strategy, but that doesn't give you any authority in that niche. Now, if you have all of the authority in the niche and you're terrible at marketing, okay, this is a great strategy. Because once people go, they'll be like, yeah, I saw your ads. Tell me about yourself. And they're a athletic trainer. Well, I played in the WHL for 4 years, got drafted to the NHL, played in the NHL for 5 years, got injured and realized I didn't want to pursue that. I wanted to help athletes, recover from injury. And they tell them, wow, that you got the authority. Yeah, you've lived what I'm trying to do. Great. Right. But if you don't, you need that experience to get there. You can't just decide one day, this is my niche and that. In the fitness industry, I look at a lot of my friends that are further ahead of me and they have a very specific niches now. I ask them, how did you get into that? How did you break into that? Well, the gym I was working at asked me if I would work with individuals with cognitive disability. I said, yeah. And now they train, all of their clients have Down syndrome or some form of cognitive disability. And they're really good at it because it just that's what was presented to them when they were starting their career. Great, that's their niche now, and they've become a master at it. So my buddy Solomon, and you ask a lot of people, it's either that's where they started their career and then they branched out and diversified their experience, or that is what was presented to them and then they became a subject matter expert on it. But this whole like bullcrap TikTok influencers saying, "Oh, you just need to market yourself better and have cool colors and all these transitions and buy my app." No, you're selling me something that you want me to buy that may or may not actually get me into the niche that I'm trying to get into, which is honestly, it's laughable.
Yeah, exactly. And humans are really good at detecting BS is the other thing. To go back to the nursing example that I used, if I had zero friends or family that worked in healthcare and took zero time to learn about the space, and I just picked my head up and I heard some personal development coach say, yeah, the riches are in the niches, which is, and there's some truth to that for sure. But it also, a saying like that also ranks in terms of accuracy as, oh, the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. Yeah, okay, that's true. But the context that's missing from that is, yeah, before they went and diversified into 7 different income streams, they put all their eggs in one basket, went all in on it, made it work. Once it was profitable and profitable passively, they took the passive income and started diversifying into the 1B, 1C, so on and so forth. In terms of the whole riches or in the niches, it's the same thing. They got good at the broad thing and then found the niche. So I couldn't start today if it was day one in my financial business and say, I have no background in healthcare, but my niche is going to be free financial reviews for nurses specifically. Because thank you, frontline workers. I appreciate how hard you work. I love what you do for the community. So I'm going to help you specifically. But then I get on the call and I have no context of what it's like to work night shift instead of 9 to 5. I have no perception on what it's like to get spat on by a random patient that you're trying to help, or to have to take an oath to serve everybody, even the people you really don't want to, and so on and so on and so on, of the stuff that the average person doesn't think about when it comes to the healthcare setting. I would get on a call with them and they'd start talking about something related to their life, and I'd be peeling the onion and asking sales questions to get to understand their situation. And they would so clearly be able to see that I have no idea about their life. And then even the business that marketing, to your point, Greg, that marketing did drum up, I would close such a small amount of it because I wouldn't be able to be relatable in the niche.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you made such a great point there on, the high net worth individuals where, oh, you need 7. Yeah, but just like you said, they didn't start all 7 of those income streams, right? I'll use another Dragon's Den example. Robert Herjavec. Again, he's not just the Dragon's Den guy that invests in all these companies. He started his business and still is one of like the foremost voices and authorities on cybersecurity. That's what he started. And he has one of the biggest cybersecurity companies in, for sure, North America, if not the world. And then it became proficient where he had a CEO run it and those people run that business and he can go off and do other things. Right. And it doesn't need to be at that scale. Okay. So if you're coaching hockey and that is your main thing, great. Coach hockey. And now you want to branch out and get into strength and conditioning specific for that. Great. Well, that is a really great connector because they're related and you'll have early success in that. Especially, okay, now your hockey program has a few assistant coaches that run your kids' programs. You run the main elite level stuff. Great. Now you're branching out and you're building different stacks. And they don't need to be vastly different either. They can all be in the same realm. But what gets you there? It's the repetition. You've created a cadence and now you've found team members to come in and have that same cadence and understand what you want, how you want it, and then allow them to have their own flavor too, right? The point of building those teams, and we've kind of gone off topic here a little bit, but it makes sense to me still where it's like, the whole point isn't to build V2 of you. It's, hey, I'm bringing you in because you have something that I don't. And you're actually way better at coaching the youth than I am. I'm really good at coaching the elites. So let's split that. And then while we're doing that, now we can build this other side. And that is where that progression and that development happens. And like people think they need to do all 8 things all at once. Well, back to talking about being consistent and being accountable to your repetition, you can't be all things to everybody. Very same thing on a niche. Yeah, you can be a broad personal trainer and work with all these people and you can be very successful. And there's lots of people that are successful that do that. But then you're going to find the clients that you get like the most results with, the fastest, much like in the financial world too. It's like, hey, those are the people that I'm going to focus most of my time on. I'm still going to work with those people and say yes when it makes sense for me, time wise, financially, and even just like liking to do it. Yeah, you know what? I need to mix in, a 40-year-old that has no experience and they're just trying to lose some fat. But I really love working with my athletes. Great, do both, but focus those repetitions and then pull what you can from each of those different experiences to build yourself more full rounded and continue that development. There's always
Well,
a way to frame it.
and if you have this desire to be everything to everyone, then you have no other choice than to build a team. Because to your point, Greg, you can't do it all. You can't be the personal trainer that trains everybody the exact same. You could, generally speaking, yeah, calories in, calories out, basic fundamentals around lifts and um, progression on weights and so on and so forth. Uh, but then, yeah, what if there's a segment of you run a gym and you're training everybody? Well, you've got a segment, to your point, Greg, of people that are going to come in that have Down syndrome. Perfect. You need a coach in your gym that can become their niche. So you're broad, but then when somebody comes in that needs niche support, don't pretend like you're the expert in the niche. The amount of times that I've said to people, hey, my bread and butter is the everyday Canadian family, the 9 to 5 employee, the nurse, the teacher, the trades worker, the person who is going to be in a career for 30 years or within an industry or just kind of the idea of being 9 to 5 for 30 years that wants to know how they can retire, that needs proper life insurance, wants to get their money working harder for them, wants to build some confidence in a budget, wants to know that they're going to be okay in the end, wants to know if they can take time off for parental leave or not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get someone that comes in that goes, yeah, well, in addition to that, I also have a corporation and I want to know what products I should have within my corporation versus what I should own personally. Perfect. I'm going to loop in a specialist for that. I'm still going to be able to contribute to the conversation and hold my own, but I'm going to loop in a specialist. If somebody's self-employed and they're wanting to know, can I get better return in the stock market or reinvesting back in my business? Well, that was something in the beginning of my career I needed to loop a specialist on. I've now worked with enough entrepreneurs and self-employed people and corporations that I can now service that niche. But um, I think especially when you're early in your career, either when you're earlier in your career, you don't have the time capacity for it. You have to be okay referring out people that maybe don't fit even if you have a very broad stroke, if you're niche, you definitely have to refer out everybody that's not within your niche. But if you're broad and not yet niche, you also need to be okay with referring out people that actually do need a specific niche person. So yeah, I'm sure there's 80% of people, Greg, that you could be a personal trainer for, or anybody with a PT certificate could be a personal trainer for, because 80% of people probably just need to change from Coke to Diet Coke and go for a walk after their meals and get the correct amount of protein. Uh, go lift 3 times a week and get some more steps in. Realistically, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be way off
Coop,
base.
you're gonna steal my job and my clients. Stop.
But but the niche in that industry, I feel like isn't the to tell them what to do, because they could get that this day and age on ChatGPT. It's the who's going to meet me where I'm at, hold me accountable, who can relate to me, who can I build enough trust with that they'll call me on my BS and dive deeper into why I want this. And when I feel like not doing it, they can say the right thing to push me to move. And then when I do have some niche issues, they're going to understand them and not just give generic advice.
I'm gonna try to pull this all together because I think some people are like, wow, this has gone all over the place. So repetition in that personal development, professional development is really necessary when it's met with that progression and accountability checks. Like, is the thing I'm doing still relevant? Do I need to change it? Okay, well, maybe I've been the master for too long, or, the coach for too long. Now I need to become a student again and build that piece of myself more. And on the niche part, and this is a really good example, right? I think it is anyway. Okay, you're a young trainer, and your boss said, "Hey, would you work with individuals with Down syndrome?" Well, I never have before, but yeah, I'm willing to learn. Perfect, great. So you have one client, you have lots of success with them, and you start to understand, what they can and what they can't do, what they are capable of, and you start understanding, oh, this is actually really engaging. This is really fun. Or maybe when your boss asks you that, you go, I would love to. My brother has Down syndrome, or my uncle has Down syndrome. Like, I can literally work with this person today, at least on a communication level, on a connection level, on a understanding to a point, because the individual that we're talking about probably doesn't have Down syndrome. So you can't fully understand, but you can understand how to interact appropriately, professionally, and just as a human with that person. Great. You're going to start carving out a great niche there, because then that community sees that. The gym community sees that, or whatever. This is just one example, right? But being that student can help you niche down. Being that student then can help you learn so much more. And then when you make your next step and you find a new second niche, great. I've taken what I've learned from this group, and now I can work with this group really well because of it, because I've pulled so much. And I've become way more empathetic of a coach because of that, because I can't, go to my athlete with Down syndrome and go, come on, go harder, and like yell at them, because they're not going to respond the same way a AAA hockey player would. That AAA hockey player probably wants that, probably needs it, because they're probably a little hard-headed 16-year-old kid that thinks they're smarter than everybody else, right? So, in all of your experiences in life, remember to be the student in small bursts in it as well, and go, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from what I'm doing? What can I learn from the people that are around me, from my clients, from my colleagues, from my coworkers, from my mentors? If you're not asking yourself those questions, those repetitions you're making in whatever you're doing are going to become stagnant, and they're going to become the same thing over and over and over again with no progression. And then it's just repetition for no reason.
Absolutely. I'll put a bow on this by sending a message as well to someone who maybe they're a creator or they have a podcast like this as well, or they're a speaker or they're training their team, or uh, say old things to new people, and old things to new people and old things to old people. And if old things to old people, if they're not inspired by them and they're not appreciating them anymore, you got to live by that old adage of, if you can't change your people, change your people. It's You can't be scared to, you can't do the thing that Greg and I did before we hit record on this episode, where we're like, well, let's come up with a brand new topic because we've already talked about this one. We've already talked about this one. We've already talked about this one. What Greg and I are going to start doing is we're going to start talking about the same things over and over again. Because if you listen to the episode when we talked about it a year ago versus you listen to it when we put it out a month from now, it's based on 12 to 13 more months of experiences as a dad, experiences in business, life changes, growth. So it's going to come through a bit of a different lens. And I hope that not only are we different when we record the episode, but you're different when you're listening to it, which is the whole point. So if you're a listener, don't shy away from listening to the same thing that you quote unquote already know, because chances are, if you've grown enough, you should be listening and hearing it from a different lens. And if you're someone who's putting content together and teaching on something, old things to new people, and new people might be a brand new person, or it might be a person you've known a while and you've already taught it to, but they're a new person because they're hearing it through a new lens. So that would be my message on today's topic: is personal development is supposed to be repetitive. There's only so many fundamentals in fitness and health and finances. There's new things to learn, but the basics are the same and need to continue to be taught.
Love it. Coop, we'll see you next week. Everybody that's still sticking around, subscribe, share this with your friends that you think will find value in it, and we'll chat with everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you found value in today's episode, like, subscribe, and share with someone in your circle so they too can build a stronger life and a more resilient future.